QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021 Company Preferences, Integrated Application, and Items and Inventory. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Desktop 2021. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars practice file homepage. We're going to go into the preferences. To do so, we're going to go to the edit dropdown. We're going to go on down to the preferences. We've been taking a look at the preferences in general, going from accounting down to general. Now we're going to be looking at the integrated applications and items and inventory. So integrated applications. There's typically going to be two tabs, as there is here, My Preferences and the Company Preferences. Nothing is in My Preferences. Let's move on over to the Company Preferences. Now, the Company Preferences, this is going to be dealing with the applications that are kind of integrated with QuickBooks. Now, QuickBooks is a standalone software. You don't need a lot of or any integrations in order to run QuickBooks. We're going to be running QuickBooks as standalone and not adding integrations. However, for specific needs within QuickBooks, you may then add the integrations of the software, and that's when you might want to manage that information here. So you can manage all applications that interact with this QuickBooks company file here. You have the first option, don't allow any applications to access this company file. So you might say if you're working, for example, with multiple company files, some that have integrations and some that do not, you might say, hey, look, I want to make sure this one is clean, and therefore I want to just click this off and say don't have any integrations for sure. And then you have notify the user before running any applications with certificate has expired. So that would probably be a good thing to have. That would be linked on there and give you that notification. Applications that have previously requested access to this company file, if there were any, they would then be listed down below. We may get into some integrations later, but right here we're not going to. Again, QuickBooks should be a standalone software, shouldn't need a lot of added integrations in order to run the basics of the bookkeeping. However, with those special needs, some integrations could be useful, and we might go into that at a future time. So then we have the My Preferences tab. We're in the Items and Inventory now. Items and Inventory, two tabs up top. Once again, My Preferences and Company Preferences. Nothing in My Preferences. If we move on over to the Company Preferences, note the default is to having unchecked inventory and purchase orders are active. We need to have that checked if we want to be tracking inventory. Remember, if you're tracking inventory in the system, you're going to be tracking like the physical count of the inventory, typically using some type of flow assumption in QuickBooks, which would be for the desktop version, I believe the average flow assumption, weighted average inventory flow assumption. So we'll see that as we work through this. The inventory flow assumptions, you'll recall, being first in, first out, last in, first out, and the weighted average methods. So note that you might have some inventory and might not want the more complications of tracking the inventory in QuickBooks. So if you have a simplified kind of inventory system or some other place where you're tracking the inventory, you might enter the data into QuickBooks for your financial purposes and track the bookkeeping on, say, an Excel spreadsheet or some other inventory tracking software, and have less detail in QuickBooks. It depends on what your needs are. So if you add inventory, it is going to be a bit more complex to do so, to track the inventory through the QuickBooks system. But it can be useful to do, and we will practice doing that. So I'm going to turn this on. Make sure to turn this on to work through the practice problem. So we have inventory and purchase orders are active. Warn about duplicate purchase orders. That's going to be a good default thing to have, because we shouldn't have duplicate invoice. Not invoice, but purchase order numbers. So warn if not enough inventory quantity on hand. So note that this is going to be tracking the units of inventory that we have. If we sell a particular unit of inventory and it doesn't seem, we don't have it in the system, it's not there as a quantity of inventory, then it's gonna let us know that. So notice what we're tracking now, not only the dollar amount of inventory. When we track inventory, we're going to purchase inventory or produce inventory. We will be purchasing inventory primarily here. We're going to put it on the books as an asset in inventory, and then we're going to have to move that asset to the expense, not at the point in time we purchase it, but at the point in time that we sell the inventory in the format of cost of goods sold. As we have this information or the inventory on the books as inventory, we need to count it both in terms of the dollar amount, because that's what we're going to measure in terms of the financial statements. And when we track it this way, we're also going to be tracking it in terms of units that we have. And when we track it in some type of unit flow, then we often do not track specific inventory units. We're assuming all the inventory units are the same, and therefore have some kind of assumption flow method like a first in, first out, last in, first out, weighted average method. And we'll typically be using, I believe in the QuickBooks desktop version, the weighted average method. If you have more questions about the inventory flow just in general, it is worth going into basically accounting theory type of courses talking about inventory flow assumptions, first in, first out, last in, first out, specific identification, weighted average methods. We do have courses on that, and it's good to have that basis in line as you track the inventory through QuickBooks. So we do have that change. Now, if you go to the next item, we're not going to go here and make any adjustments now, but I want to click down here because then QuickBooks will say you made changes to items and inventory preferences. Do you wish to save them? And we're going to say yes. We want to make sure to save those. We want to be tracking the inventory as we go.